relationships are, of course, situation important. Your home situation, your professional work situation important. All those things, whether you have money or not enough money, all these things are important, relatively important, but not absolutely important. So you have the two levels. I don't deny the relative importance of all these things that make up your so-called life, but what humans neglect and do not realize that there is a transcendent dimension to your life, and to encounter that, to consciously awaken to the transcendent dimension of your life, that is the only thing that is of absolute importance. Then everything else falls into place. It doesn't mean if you focus on the awakening, whether you are conscious at any moment, the important thing in any situation that you encounter in your life is the state of consciousness with which you meet that situation. What is the state of consciousness in which you face whatever situation arises in the present moment? That determines the next thing, how it's going to go on in the next moment, in the next. How do you perceive, react to this, whatever is arising in this moment? So whatever is arising in this moment, the situation that arises, they come and go, different situations arise, is always maybe important, but it's of secondary importance. More important is your state of consciousness now. If you could remember only that and live that, that's really all you need. So whenever you encounter any situation, realize, what's my state of consciousness right now? And there's a situation that perhaps you need to deal with, perhaps you need to take action right now, perhaps there's nothing you can do and you have to leave it alone. We don't know. But what is your state of consciousness in the present moment? Find the question. And in order to answer that question, and it doesn't really have a conceptual answer because you immediately know whether you are present or not. That question can help you become present. What is my state of consciousness right now? Maybe are there certain thoughts that are happening that are telling you that something is very wrong? Emotions that are telling you something is wrong? There's certain thoughts that tell you you'd rather be somewhere else. A very common thing. It's so common people don't realize it. Some people live almost continuously as if they were longing to be somewhere else, but not here and now. To get away from here now. This isn't right. There's something not right. Never. Occasionally it seems right. I've arrived. Whatever it is that makes it right for a moment, it's an illusion. I'm in love. This is the completion of my life. I've fallen in love. There's the person who's going to complete me. When you go to a restaurant and observe other people sitting at various tables, you can tell, with their couples sitting at a table, you can tell whether their relationship is relatively recent, they haven't known each other for very long, they're in that state that they call falling in love. The way they interact is very different from those who have been in a relationship for longer or married. The ones that have just met and now they fall in love, they are in a kind of state of delusion. Everybody's playing playing their part in it. It's a theatrical performance, but we don't know it. And that comes to an end at the latest when they start living together. So then the essence of all this is awakening, the awakened state of consciousness. And as I mentioned earlier, not surprisingly, this term awakening has been used over thousands of years, since the time of the Buddha and before. The essence of the teaching of the Buddha is to awaken. The word Buddha itself means to be awake, the one who is awake. It's the Sanskrit root of the word, is to be awake. Buddha is it's not a name of a person, it describes a state of consciousness. And then go to Jesus, and there are quite a few parables that talk about not going to sleep, about staying awake. And these are parables, so they're not to be taken literally, obviously. Literally, you cannot tell a person stay awake, because eventually, of course, you go to sleep. So we're just using this analogy of awake and asleep in order to point to something that most humans are not yet familiar with. To quote Jesus again from one of the Gospels, he said, and this is quite a bit of what we read about Jesus' teaching may not be quite what he said or distorted, but a few things I can sense are absolutely, literally what he said. A few things here and there. For example, he said, "And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake." No? Was that the Buddha or Jesus? No, it was Jesus. Oh. No, he's not talking about the normal state of wakefulness. Nobody could stay awake for that long because there's something that pulls you into sleep. So we're not talking about that, we're using that as an analogy. Everybody knows what it means to awaken in the morning when you've been asleep, which is a particular state of consciousness. You're asleep, and in sleep you have dream state and you have dreamless sleep. You have those two. And then you wake up, you awaken in the morning, and there's a huge difference between the state of sleep and the state of being awake. Everybody experiences that every morning. And you go, suddenly you open your eyes and go, oh, completely different world. Awakened. It's a different state of consciousness. And so this analogy is used because there is something in ordinary consciousness, normal human consciousness, which really should be called unconsciousness. Normal human consciousness could also be described as a kind of sleep because it's totally conditioned by the past. And the past makes up the content of your mind. The mental emotional field is determined by the conditioning from your past. And most humans are completely identified with that conditioned entity, which is a mental emotional entity, an energy field. And so they are so identified that that's all they know. In other words, the conditioned thought processes never stop. They go continuously. There's a voice talking to you, or you're talking to yourself, or you're having a monologue, or you're having a dialogue. Some people argue with themselves. It's all the voice in the head never stops for most people. And that is, spiritually speaking, that is a state of unconsciousness, completely identified with the conditioned mental emotional patterns which make up the so-called personality, the ego. So if you are completely identified with it, every thought has you in its grasp. Every emotion that arises has you completely in its grasp. And you're thinking, you think you're thinking, but you're not thinking. Thinking happens to you. You don't have a choice if you're unconscious. There's no choice. All your thought processes happen to you. You're at the mercy of your thoughts, the conditioned thoughts in your head. And all the reactions that come with it. Every situation you encounter, there comes a conditioned reaction to the situation. It's the person or the personality that reacts. And you don't even have a choice. Why don't you have a choice? Because you're asleep, spiritually speaking. This thing is taking you over. It's a dream-like state also. And you can see all the people are completely up there. They're not really here. You can see sometimes the complete absence in a person's eyes. They're not really here, they're asleep. But they're thinking very hard, so that is. And even at night when there's nobody around to talk to, you're still, the voice is going on. And it's telling you, I've solved these problems, what's going to happen to next? Awful things, God, I can't take any more of this. What's my life come to? I imagined something different when I was 20 years old. I imagined something very different. Why did it all go so wrong? Well, many people actually have that feeling. There's something that has gone drastically wrong in my life. And with others, it's a mixed bag. Some things went okay, and others didn't. It depends what their mind, and your mind tends to focus more on the negative than the positive. Much more memorable, the negative, than the positive. If you go on vacation and everything goes perfectly fine, okay, you remember some nice moments and sunsets, but if something went drastically wrong, you remember that for the rest of your life, and you talk about it continuously. If everything went fine, you don't talk about it. We had a wonderful holiday. Oh yeah, okay. You know what happened? But we went into our room and there was these cockroaches coming out of the floor, water was coming to the ceiling, and then they stole all my bags. Oh my God. So interesting. And then you know what he said to me? He said, "How dare you?" And I said, "How dare I? What about you?" You are the one with the biggest ego, I said. And then he started hitting me. And then the stories go on and on. And so a lot of things, the negative things are much more memorable. That's the ego focuses on that. It loves its enemies, and every negative situation is the ego's enemy, and then it can claim, it can enhance its fictitious identity through the more enemies you have, the stronger your fictitious sense of self becomes. Entire nations do that too, they make their enemies. Except Sweden, so all the non-peace-loving people have left Sweden a long time ago. They were called the Vikings, and they occupied other lands. So then we have in Indian spiritual philosophy, psychology, there's a word that's been around for a long time. It's called Tuliya. Tuliya means the force, first, second, third, fourth. Tuliya is the force. The force is it refers to state of consciousness. They divided the human consciousness into these four parts. There is dreamless sleep, there is the dream state in sleep, there is the state of wakefulness, which is ordinary human consciousness, and Turiya is the awakened state of consciousness. That's the fourth state of consciousness. They've been talking about that for hundreds of years, thousands of years. The possibility of this dimension of consciousness arising in humans, the fourth state. This is what this is all about. And it is not some distant possibility that you may achieve in some future lifetime, as many people still believe that. Many Buddhists, I've met Buddhists who say, I think I'll need another 15 lifetimes. And then, in fact, my teacher told me, he told me 15 more lifetimes and then I'll be enlightened. Oh, that's right. Well, you have plenty of time, so you can stay unconscious now. But the strange thing is, the awakened state of consciousness is already there within you. It's just covered up, hidden by mental noise and emotional turmoil. It's already there as your essential reality. So that's interesting. So it means that time is ultimately not helpful as far as your awakening is concerned. Time is not helpful. In fact, it's a hindrance in your awakening. Okay? So, no time is required for awakening. Okay? Now let me just, the mind says, let me try to figure this out. That doesn't make sense. Meaning I've been meditating for nothing all these years. Meditation, if it works as it should, ultimately the purpose is, the aim is to be present while you meditate, not to seek some future condition. This is a fundamental mistake that meditators make, is they imagine a future condition that they want to arrive at or achieve, and they think, if I just practice more and harder, I will eventually achieve that awakened state. And that belief is actually a hindrance. So, because then you are doing a meditation. And if you're doing a meditation, you miss the one thing that is the awakened state, and we could call that being, the realization of being. There needs to be a cessation of doing, an end of doing, in order to realize being. You have the two dimensions in your life. Doing, that requires time, and being, that requires no time. Now, most humans are unaware of being. They are lost in doing. And the primordial doing is thinking. And then you miss the now, which is inseparable from being. So, I invite you as we speak, or I speak, or the speaking happens. I don't know who is speaking, so and invite you here and now to become aware of being here and now. Now, how does some of you may just, as I say these words, which are only pointers, like signposts, as I say these words, some of you may be able to sense their own beingness. You sense that you are